Paratmanamekam Jagadbijamadyam Niriham Nirakaram Onkar Vedyam Yato Jayate Palyate Yena Vishvam Tamisham Bhaje Liyate Yatra Vishvam. Hariom Tat Sat. Hariom Tat Sat. Hariom Tat Sat. Dear devotees, so today we are into the 7th session of this 15th chapter, and in today's session we shall try to finish off this chapter. We have a few more verses to take up. If you all remember, in the last class we had taken up 4 verses. That was from verse 12 to 15. And all these 4 verses had one common theme. And that theme was the all-pervasiveness of the Supreme Reality, number 1. Number 2, that it is the Supreme Reality which is manifested everywhere. And number 3, that it is this Supreme Reality which is the very basis of all our empirical dealings. No event, no action is possible without the presence of this Supreme Reality. It is there at the back of everything that is happening in our life. Only we are not aware of it. When we begin to become aware of its presence consciously, that is the real transformative power of that knowledge. The knowledge of the presence of the Supreme Reality in our every action. This knowledge has got a tremendously transformative power. It completely transforms our life and takes it to a totally different level. And that is what we have to attempt. And for that, this great picture is given to us by Sri Krishna in this chapter. The all-pervasiveness of the Supreme Reality. It is the Supreme Reality which is pervading everything. So Krishna had said, Yad aditya gatam tejo jagat bhasayate khilam yad chandramasi yaccha agnau tat tejo vidhi mamakam. The radiance which we see in the sun which is illumining the entire solar system, that radiance belongs to me, Krishna says. The radiance seen in the moon, it is my radiance. The radiance seen in the fire, it's my radiance. Then he says, Gama vishyacha bhutani dharayami ahamojasa pushnami jaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmaka. It is I who have entered into this earth, and I am sustaining all the creatures by my own power. And I am nourishing all the plants, having become the Soma. Soma is the juice of all juices. We have seen what is the meaning of that in the last class. In short, it is this divine reality which is pervading everything. The earth, its living creatures, the plant kingdom, everything is pervaded by the Supreme Reality. Only we are not aware of it. Our life is blissfully going on without the knowledge of what is at the back of all these things that we see happening. Then he says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritah pranapana samayuktau pachami annam chaturvidham. It is I who have become the Vaishvanara. Vaishvanara is the digestive fire, the digestive flame which is there in our belly. And having become this digestive flame, fire, it is I who am digesting all the food associated with prana and apana. The digestive fire associated with prana and apana, it is that which is digesting every kind of food which we put into our belly. And that digestive fire is that supreme reality in a certain form. So actually, who is eating the food? Throughout our life, we have been eating and eating. As long as we are alive, we are going to eat. Only we don't understand who is the real eater and who is the real eaten. Two things. It has got deep implications. It is a supreme reality in the form of the eater, and it is again that very supreme reality in the form of the eaten. That is why the Rishi of the Taittiriya Upanishad, so beautifully, in an ecstatic mood, he proclaims, Ahamannam, Ahamannam, Ahamannam. I am the food, I am the food, I am the food. Ahamannado, Ahamannado, Ahamannado. I am the eater of the food. I am the eater of the food. I am the eater of food. Aham shlokakrit, Aham shlokakrit, Aham shlokakrit. I am the unifier. I am the unifier. I am the unifier. In which, in me, everything gets unified. In me, the eater and the eaten gets unified. In me, the knower and the known gets unified. All these polarities of life, in me, everything gets unified. I am that unifying principle. In God, all the polarities and dualities and multiplicities get dissolved. It is one supreme reality playing in the form of the eater as well as the eaten. And Shankaracharya so beautifully says, a person who eats food with this knowledge, knowing fully well who is the eater and who is the eaten, the impurities of the food will never touch that person. So beautiful. If we have to be freed from the doshas, anna dosha, our food is full of defects. I don't want to go into that subject. How our food can be full of defects is a totally independent subject discussed in our Shastras. And food matters. Food is a very important component of human life. The kind of food we take, it determines the kind of body and mind we shall have. And the kind of body and mind which we produce with the help of the food which we eat, that will determine the direction in which our life will go. This great discovery of the supreme reality is possible only when we have the body and the mind of a certain kind. The body and the mind can be an obstacle or something which is not fit for the discovery of the supreme reality. And it may be a body and mind which is completely fit and eligible for the knowledge of the supreme reality. So that fitness and eligibility comes from the food factor. And food doesn't mean the only thing which we take through our mouth. Whatever we are taking to our five sense organs, they are all food. Shankaracharya says, Shankaracharya's beautiful commentary in the Chandogya Upanishad, he says, food is not only what we eat through our mouth. We are eating through all the five sense organs. Through the eyes, we are eating the forms and it is going inside and it is determining the quality of the human mind. Through the ears, we are eating. Through the mouth, we are eating. Through all the five sense organs, we are continuously ingesting food, ingesting food, ingesting food. So in this, we should know who is the eater and what is being eaten. If we have this knowledge behind this wonderful thing which is going on, the so-called empirical dealing, and who is behind this empirical dealing, then the defects of so-called, the different kinds of perceptions which we are having, we shall be untouched by those defects. That is what Shankaracharya says. So, indirectly he is telling us, be aware about who is the eater and who is the eaten. Be aware as to who is the knower and who is the known. Be aware as to who is the seer and who is the seen. All these polarities, they get unified in that supreme reality. And the 15th verse, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvairahameva vedyo Vedanta krit veda videva chaham. He says, see again, it is I who am seated in every creature's heart. Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishto. Hridi means hridayam, the heart. It is I who am seated in everybody's heart. You see, is God somewhere far away? He is closest to us, only we are not aware about it. We are searching for God everywhere else, but we are never looking inside our own hearts. He is seated there even now, but is hidden. To uncover or discover Him is the very purpose of human life. So, Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishto. I am seated in the hearts of all the creatures. And he says, Matta smritir. It is from me that everyone has got the capability to remember, smriti, and the capability to know, matta smritir jnanam. Smriti and jnanam, the capability to remember and the capability to know and understand. It is whose capability it is. When we learn certain new things, we think, I have learnt it. From where does this capacity to know come? Is it the body's capacity? Is it mere the mind's capacity? It is something more. That capacity, that capability comes from the supreme reality. You may call it God. So the capability to remember and the capability to know, and also our forgetfulness and also the disappearance of knowledge, that also comes from God. God plays in both the forms. He plays in the form of memory, and also He plays in the form of loss of memory and loss of knowledge. Both the things. In short, again, He is the one in which all kinds of experiences get unified. All the so-called opposing kinds of experiences, they all get unified in God. Such a beautiful thing it is. So in our life, all the kinds of experiences which we have, we usually categorize into good and bad. And we usually think that God, if something good happens, we remember God. And when something bad happens, we begin to complain. We should understand, behind all kinds of opposing experiences which we usually experience in life, it is the presence of that supreme reality, God. So, sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyo. Through all the Vedas, the thing to be known is me. What is this Vedas meant for? It is meant for the knowledge of the supreme reality. Vedaischa sarvai ahameva vedyo. I am the thing to be known through the Vedas. And what? Vedanta krit. I am the originator of the Vedas, and Veda Videva Chaham. I am the knower of the Vedanta. It is all God and God alone. It is God who is in the form of the Vedas. Through Vedas, it is God which is to be known. And God is the originator of the Vedanta, and He is the knower of everything. So, in short, this is what we had discussed in the last class. Just to sum up, the all-pervasiveness of the Supreme Reality. And it is this Supreme Reality which is manifested in everything. In everything, it is the Supreme Reality which is manifested. And in everything that is happening in our life, all the empirical dealings, none of these things are possible without the presence of this Supreme Reality. So this is what we had seen till now. Now, introducing the next verse, the next three verses. Again, the next three verses together, they form one idea. Shankaracharya says, the central idea of the next three verses is that in the preceding four verses, we saw God as pervading everything. It is everything, in everything God is manifested. So, this supreme reality associated all the things of the world. The supreme reality in association with the limiting adjuncts. In short, we can say, if you just remember that sun and the pots in which the sun is getting reflected. So we can talk about the sun with reference to the pots where the sun is getting reflected, and we can say that it is one sun which is pervading all the pots. We can say that it is one sun which is manifesting in all the pots. So till now, the description of the supreme reality was in the context of the so-called reflectors. Till now, in the last four verses, the description was of the supreme reality with reference to the different kinds of limiting adjuncts or the reflectors. It is only in the context of the reflectors that we can say that supreme reality is pervading all the reflectors. It is only in the context of the reflectors that we can say that it is the same supreme reality which is manifested in all the reflector, every single reflector. Now in the succeeding verses, in the next three verses, the same supreme reality is being described without reference to the reflectors. The supreme reality in its absolute form, with no reference to the limiting adjuncts. These are the two kinds of descriptions of the supreme reality. One is in the context of this world where that supreme reality is pervading everything, where the supreme reality is manifested in so many forms, and now comes the description of that supreme reality without this reference to this reflector called the world and the creatures. The description of the supreme reality in its own self, the absolute reality, the transcendental reality. That is the theme of the next three verses. Let's see. So Krishna says, Dvavimau purushau loke, ksharas chakshara evacha, ksharas sarvani bhutani, kutasto akshara ukchate. What does it mean? Beautiful verse. This is the description of the supreme reality in its absolute form. And here Krishna is talking about three levels of existence. Three levels of existence, we shall see what it is. Krishna is saying, Dvav imau purushau loke. Loke, dvav imau purushau. In this world, there are two levels of existence. What are these two levels of existence? Kshara, akshara, evacha. One level of existence is kshara, which is known as kshara purusha, and the another level of existence is akshara or akshara purusha. And Krishna himself is further elaborating what is the meaning of kshara and akshara. So what is the meaning of kshara? Krishna is saying, kshara sarvani bhutani. Kshara means what? That which is mutable or that which is continuously changing. The kshara refers to sarvani bhutani, this entire manifested world which we are seeing, which is continuously mutating or changing. Kshara sarvani bhutani. Kshara means that which is continuously changing. The ever-changing level of existence. Kshara sarvani bhutani. This is one level of existence. The outermost level of existence which we are perceiving. Actually, we are not experiencing anything else. If we just look into the nature of the human perception and understanding, we are only understanding and perceiving this kshara dimension. the outermost dimension which is continuously mutating and continuously changing. This is what Krishna is referring to as Kshara Purusha, that dimension which is continuously changing. So Kshara Sarvani Bhutani, and then what? What is Akshara Purusha? Akshara Purusha says, Kutastho Akshara Uchyate. Now that which is the cause of this changing dimension is what is referred to as Kutastha or Akshara Purusha. In short, I am making it very simple, straight away, without going into the complications. What this Akshara dimension refers to is Maya. That inscrutable power which makes this changing dimension appear before us. Maya is a strange power of Brahman which makes this changing, the perception of the changing dimension possible. So these are the two levels of existence Krishna is talking about. Dvau imau purushau loke. There are two levels of existence in this world. One is Kshara and the other is Akshara. Kshara is this changing dimension and Akshara is the cause of this changing dimension, which refers to Maya. Simple thing. And that Maya is a beautiful term is used here by Krishna. What is this Maya? He says, Kutastha Akshara Uchyate. Kutastha. So Bhagavan Shankaracharya so beautifully says, what is the meaning of Kuta? Kuta means Maya. Kuta means deception. Kuta means falsehood. So all this changing dimension which we are seeing, it is actually speaking a deception, which is hiding the truth. It is the perception of something which is not true in itself. That is what is referred to as Kuta. So this perception, this continuous perception of the diverse forms of deception. Again, I repeat this. Shankaracharya says in his Bhashya so beautifully, this continuous perception of the diverse forms of deception, the diverse forms of Maya, that is what is the meaning of Kutastha. So these are the two levels of existence which Krishna is talking about. One is the changing dimension, Kshara Purusha, Kshara Sarvani Bhutani, the changing dimension. And the other one is Kutastho Akshara Uchyate, the cause of this changing dimension, which is Maya, which is referred to as Kutastha. Now comes a beautiful next verse. Krishna says, now beyond these two levels of realities, beyond these two levels of existences, one is the changing dimension and the other one is the cause of this changing dimension. Beyond these two, Krishna says there is a third level of existence which is the actual true existence, which is the absolute reality, which is our true nature. We are actually that. But that is the whole search. Whole of this human life, this birth in the human body is actually meant for instituting this great search for the supreme reality. So Krishna says, what is this third level of existence? The absolute existence, the unchanging dimension. What is that? Uttama Purushastvanya Paramatma iti Udarataha Yo Lokatrayamavishya Bibharti Avyaya Ishvaraha. What does it mean? Krishna says that there is something else beyond these two levels of existences. The two levels of existence is what we have referred to as the changing and the cause of the changing dimension. That is Maya and Maya's effect. These are the two levels of existences which we were talking about till now. Beyond this, Uttama Purusha, the Uttama Purusha, the Supreme Person, is tu Anyaha. Uttama Purushas tu Anyaha. Anya means transcendental. Shankaracharya says, the Supreme Reality, Brahman, is transcendental to these two levels of existences. this changing dimension as well as the cause of this changing dimension, which is Maya, that supreme reality is transcendental to these two levels of existences. So, Uttama Purushastu Anyaha. Anya means transcendental. Paramatma iti udarataha, which is referred to as Paramatma. That is the supreme person. That is the supreme reality. That supreme reality is that which is transcendent to these two levels of existences. And how is the supreme reality? Yo lokatrayamavishya, who having permeated all the three worlds means the entire cosmos, this entire changing dimension, it is that transcendental reality which is permeating this entire changing dimension, this entire cosmos which we are referring to as Jagat or world or whatever you may talk about it. It is that supreme reality which is permeating this entire existence. Yo lokatrayama vishya bibharti. Bibharti means upholds, holds everything. Avyaya Ishvaraha. It is that Avyaya Ishvara, that supreme reality, the indestructible Ishvara, which is holding this entire changing dimension. Actually, we are all constantly being held by God. We don't understand this. And we feel so miserable as long as though we don't establish our connection with this unchanging reality. Human being is just a miserable toy, literally speaking. He or she may be the richest person on this planet, is just a miserable person as long as we have not established or discovered our connection with this supreme reality. The living creature, it is not only human being, all the living creatures are just at the mercy of an inscrutable power which is just making us go round and round and round and round. We are miserable. But as soon as the person succeeds in establishing and discovering our connection with that unchanging Ishvara, Avyaya Ishvara, the indestructible Ishvara, the whole scenario changes. That is a promise, the wonderful promise which Krishna, towards the end of this Gita, he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Come to me, take refuge in me. Take refuge in me means what? Understand your connection with me. Discover your connection with me. You're not actually unconnected with me. You're not even separate from me. Discover this. The very idea that you are separated from God is just based on ignorance. There is not 1 inch of separation from God as far as we are concerned. Discover that. That is the meaning of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Praja. Discover your inseparableness from God. What will happen? Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami mashucha. What is there for you to worry, my dear child? Mashucha. Don't be sad and don't worry. The moment you discover your inseparable connection with me, you will see you will be freed from all your so-called miseries and sufferings and defects. This is the clarion call and the message towards the end of the Gita to all of us. Discover, discover, discover. Try to discover your connection with the Supreme Reality. Anyway, that comes towards the end of the Gita. So here Krishna is saying, Uttama Purushastvanya Paramatma iti udarataha yo lokatrayama vishya bibharti avyaya Ishvara. So beyond these two levels of existences, the changing as well as the cause of the changing, there is a third level of existence which is the absolute existence, which is that supreme reality. And it is this supreme reality which is permeating this entire changing dimension and also holding it, upholding it. We are all held by God eternally. In fact, to talk about we being held by God is also a lower standpoint. We are never separated from God. This is what is the supreme teaching. And only when we understand that, our life undergoes a wonderful transformation. Then only we begin to lead the true life actually. Our true life starts from that standpoint, from that point onwards. Before that thing happens, we have not even, actually speaking, started to live life. Life begins when we understand our inseparable connection with that divinity. Such a beautiful thing it is. And here in this verse, Shankaracharya says, what is the nature of the supreme reality, which is the third level of existence? He says, this supreme reality is entirely contrary in characteristics from the other two. The supreme reality is totally opposite to the characteristics of the other two levels of existence. The other two levels of existence is continuously changing. It is continuously getting destroyed. And this one is what? He says, it is Nitya Shuddha, Nitya Buddha, Nitya Mukta. That is our true nature. Always unchanging, full of bliss, eternally pure, and full of light and radiance. This is our true nature. Now, this is a matter of experience. As long as we don't strive to discover this, we won't be able to perhaps understand. We can try to conceptualize it in our minds, but conceptualizing it is one thing. But when we begin to lead a certain kind of life and strive to experience it, then we begin to get a glimpse of what Krishna is talking about here. It's a fact of experience. So, then the 18th verse, Krishna says, Yasmat ksharamati toham aksharaadapicha uttamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottamah. Since, yasmat means since. Yasmat ksharam atitoham. Since I am ksharam atito. I am transcendent to kshara. Kshara means the changing dimension. I am transcendent to the changing dimension. Since I am transcendent to the changing dimension, aksharaadapicha uttamaha. And I am even superior to the akshara. Akshara means maya. I am superior to the maya. I am the lord of the maya. And I am transcendent to these two. And this being so, atosmi loke vedecha. That's why in the world as well as in the Vedas, I am referred to as Purushottama. So beautiful. I am referred to as the Supreme Person, Purusha Uttamaha, the Supreme Person, the absolute reality. Why this thing is called as Supreme Person, the Supreme Reality? The reason is that it is transcendental to the two levels of existences, which is the changing dimension, and it is also superior to Maya. It is the Lord of the Maya. That is why there can be nothing greater than that. God is the ultimate, the absolute reality. So, Yaksmat ksharamati toham aksharaadapi chottama atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottama. That's why in the Vedas as well as in this entire world, I am known as Purushottama, the Supreme Person. So here, Shankaracharya says that I am beyond the tree of Maya. If you all remember, the tree of this world, this whole chapter started with a description of this samsara vriksha. This world is compared to a tree whose roots are in the unmanifested, the invisible, and whose branches are outside in the manifested dimension. And that root is what we are referring to as the Bhagavan or Ishvara, which is actually transcendent to this changing dimension. So this whole struggle is to go back to our own roots. As long as we don't understand our own roots, it is not outside. It is all in the depth of our own being. And how to do that, we have seen in the preceding verses. Krishna talks about that. Now, what happens when one gains the experiential knowledge of the Supreme Reality residing in our own hearts? In short, in other words, what happens when we discover our connection with the Supreme Reality? What happens when we understand our true nature? What will happen? That is what is being shown in the next verse. Krishna says, Yo mam evam asammudho janati purushottamam sa sarvavit bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. Krishna says, Yo mam evam janati. Yo mam evam janati. One who knows me in this way, as it has been described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. See, it is not some imaginary knowing. God, most of the time, we have different conceptions of God. No. The imaginary God is imaginary. Every human being imagines God in so many ways. The real picture of what the Supreme Reality, it comes from the Shastras, and Shastras alone. What is referred to is Tattva Jnanam. Bhagavat Tattva Jnanam. In the beginning we had said to this point. This Gita, and especially the 15th chapter, deals with Bhagavat Tattva Jnanam. The Bhagavan as Bhagavan is, not as we imagine. That is very important. We can imagine in so many ways, and all the fight about God is only the fight between the different imaginations and imaginary idea of gods. One person will say, my idea of God is the right one, and the other person will say, mine is the right one, and the fight goes on. But where is that description of that Supreme Reality as it is, and not as imagined by the human mind? See the scientific temper of it. Your imaginations and human sentiments have got no place. It is pure search for truth. Knowing the truth as it is, beyond all human likes and dislikes and sentiments. It's a pure scientist's mind who is seeking the truth as it is. That is what is referred to as Bhagavat Tattva Jnanam. So Krishna says, Yo mam evam janati. One who knows me thus. Thus means as I have described here, not as you are imagining. As I am describing here, anyone who knows the Supreme Reality in this way, asammudha. Asammudha means free from delusion, you see. Freed from delusion. We can have all kinds of ideas about God. No. So, yo mam evam asammudho janati. Asammudho is a beautiful word. A person who is freed from delusion. A person who is freed from delusion, and when he knows the Supreme Reality as it has been described by Krishna here, what happens? Sa sarvavit. He becomes sarvavit. Sarvavit means he becomes all-knowing. And what? Bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. He becomes all-knowing, he becomes sarvavit, and he adores me with whole of his heart. See, when the supreme knowledge comes, along with that comes the supreme bhakti also. The real adoration comes when you understand that there is nothing apart from God here. God alone is existing. When we derive this knowledge, when it becomes a fact of human perception in every moment and every moment of human life, when we begin to perceive the one reality everywhere, with that comes the supreme bhakti also, then life itself becomes a continuous, unbroken adoration of the divine. Through your activities itself, your life itself, all your actions become a continuous adoration and veneration for that supreme reality. The real bhakti starts from that standpoint, not wanting anything from what wanting. As long as we are wanting this and that from God, that is not bhakti at all. The real bhakti starts when we don't want anything. What shall we want? God alone is existing. When the human mind comes to this climactic kind of an experience, when the person sees divinity and divinity alone everywhere, where there is no more bartering with God. God, I will give you this, you give me this. This is not bhakti at all. Usually bhakti, in the name of bhakti, this is what is going on. We go to the temple only to seek many things for our worldly things. That is not bhakti. The true bhakti starts when we don't want anything from God. God, I just want to love you. That's all. In fact, he just wants to love God. That's all. Because God alone is existing. He is the only supreme person which is actually existing here. So this is the climax of this whole investigation. So Krishna is saying, Yo mam evam asammudho janati. This person who knows me, who is freed from delusion, who doesn't have any imaginary ideas in his mind, who has learned to see the truth as it is. And what happens? So sarvavit. He becomes all-knowing, because for him everything is God. When you know that nothing apart from God is existing, you become all-knowing. Whatever is existing is God. Do we not become all-knowing by that? This is the very question which is found in the Mundaka Upanishad. Kasminno bhagavato vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. What is that one thing knowing which everything becomes known? Just look at the scientific temper of this questioning. The disciple is questioning this to the Guru and asking me, Gurudev, tell me, what is that one thing? If we know that one thing, we know everything. It's a beautiful thing it is. In the language of physics, we may say, today we are trying to find out that unified thing, that material. In physics language, there are so many things, so many terms are used. What is that thing which can unify everything? That one thing which explains everything. All these different theories are being proposed by the different physicists. So long back in the Upanishads, we find this idea. The teacher is telling, in fact, the disciple is asking this question to the teacher. Kasminno bhagavato vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. What is that one thing, knowing which everything becomes known? When we know God, when we understand that there is nothing apart from God which is existing, you become all-knowing, because whatever is existing is God alone. This is the meaning of becoming all-knowing. Sarvavit. Sa sarvavit. And then what happens? When you know that God alone is existing, bhajati mam. He will be only adoring God through his every activity, through his speech, through his thoughts, through his hands, through his feet. Whatever he is doing, he is continuously adoring God. Yadyat karma karomi tat tadakhilam shambho tavaradhanam. As Bhagavan Vyasa says in one of his stotras, then the whole life becomes a continuous act of adoration and veneration of the Supreme Divine. So beautiful. Yadyat karma karomi. Whatever actions I am doing, it's all, O God, your adoration. Shambho tava aradhanam. It is all your aradhana. It's all your adoration. So beautiful. Walking, talking, eating, sleeping, everything becomes a continuous act of adoring the divine in so many ways. This is how we totally transform the human life. We begin to see divinity everywhere. Life itself is divine. Everything is wonderful when this vision comes. Before that, we are simply miserable. As long as I am seeing I and you and everything separated, unconnected, not knowing the connection between all these different things existing in the world, and driven by the forces of likes and dislikes, attachments and aversions, our life is a story of unending misery and suffering. As long as we are driven by likes and dislikes, hatred and attachment, love and the opposite of that. Love means what? All attractions. We are being attracted and we are being repelled. But when we know that which is unifying everything, this attractions and repelling, everything comes to an end. Then we understand what is true peace is. Then we understand what true joy is in life. The true life starts from that point onwards, when we rise above all these polarities and dualities. So Krishna is saying here, Sa sarvabit bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. He begins to adore God with all his heart. And the last verse, beautiful. This last verse already we had seen in the beginning. Concluding this chapter, Krishna says, so beautiful. He says, Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam maya anagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam maya. By me has been told to you, O sinless Arjun. He is referring to Arjun as sinless, anagha. O Arjun, O sinless one, by me has been told, this supremely secret Shastra. Guhyatamam Shastra. Krishna is referring to this chapter as Shastra. Why? We had seen it in the beginning. Because in this one chapter, you will find the whole of the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Not only the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, but the essence of the whole of the Vedas. In fact, if somebody wants to understand what are the principles or the most important fundamental concepts of Hindu Dharma, this is what is actually Hindu Dharma. This 15th chapter, if you understand, you are understanding the whole thing, what goes in the name of Hindu Dharma. The essentials, not the details. So it is this divinity. Hindu Dharma is the search for the supreme truth. And that supreme truth is being searched in so many different forms. As I said, that supreme truth is manifested everywhere, so it is manifested in so many divine forms. So this is one system of thought which celebrates divinity in so many diverse forms. So beautiful. That samsara vriksha, whose roots are inside our own self, which is referred to as God, that samsara moolam or vriksha moolam, which is referred to as God, that moolam is looked upon in so many different ways. That moolam can be looked at as Ram, no problem. That moolam can be looked upon as Krishna, no problem. That moolam can be looked upon as Shiva, Kali, Saraswati, Durga. Endlessly, infinite numbers of forms and names can be given to that samsara moolam referred to as God. And you celebrate it. This is the beauty of this dharma, which is not existing in any other system in the world. This is the only society where divinity is celebrated in myriad forms and ways. That's why for us, everything is an occasion for celebration. Divinity is being celebrated throughout the years, one after the other. So beautiful. It's all a system which has been created so that the human being remains constantly in touch with the divine in so many different ways. People ask why there are so many celebrations in Hindu Dharma. Why? You can have it once in a year. Other systems, 25th December, once in a year. Why once in a year? Hinduism, it would say every day we should be in touch with that divinity. Every day you will find if you just go by Panchanga, you will find every day is sacred. If you just follow the Panchanga, every day you will find something or the other is there. Which earlier Hindus used to do it. Nowadays we have stopped doing it. That was the very way of life. Every day is an occasion to come and touch with this samsara moolam, this vriksha moolam, which is referred to as God in so many different ways. That is why this culture and civilization has been so open and so welcoming to all. We respect all. Whatever it is, that is a different thing. So, this is what Krishna is referring to as Guhyatamam Shastram. This is the supremely secret Shastram, which I have told you. Etad Buddha, anyone who knows this, Buddhiman Syat, he will become a wise person. And Kritakrityascha, he will become Kritakritya. Kritakritya means completely fulfilled. Such a beautiful thing it is. He becomes completely fulfilled. Just imagine if you know God alone is existing, all our sense of incompleteness, all our sense of emptiness of heart comes to an end. There is no other way to put an end to this existential experience of the vacuum of the human heart. Please note it down. There is no other way to address the existential problem which every living creature is experiencing, the problem of the vacuum of the human heart. This emptiness of the human heart, we are trying to fill it up with all kinds of sensory experiences. It will never happen. It will never happen. It's a challenge. Life will come to an end. Again, life in another body will start. Again, we keep on committing the same mistake, trying to fill the vacuum of the human heart through sensory indulgences. It never ends. Again birth and again death. Again birth and again death. We are continuously deceived. This is what is referred to as kuta. It's a continuous deception which is going on. Kutastho akshara uchate. This Mahamaya. Kuta is, this play is going on. So, The real fulfillment comes from this great experience. Etad buddhva buddhiman syat. Anyone who knows the Supreme Reality, he or she becomes buddhiman, the wise person. And kritakrityascha bharata. So, in this, Bhagavan Shankaracharya has said, the whole of the 15th chapter dealt with this Bhagavad Tattva Jnanam, and the result of this Bhagavad Tattva Jnanam is moksha phalam. We become liberated. Then that person who has come to this kind of an experiential understanding of the reality, there is no more rebirth for that person. That person becomes liberated, which is the very goal of human life. So, with this, the 15th chapter comes to an end. A beautiful small chapter, the smallest in fact, just 20 verses. 12th chapter also has got just 20 verses. Both the verses have got 20 verses. But this chapter, in short, is the very essence of the whole of the Gita and the essence of the whole of the Vedas. Now in the next class, which will be the last class of our session, this 15th chapter is over. In the next class, we shall just, without referring to the book, we shall just sum up the whole thing in one class. What we have learned in this last 7 sessions, we will just sum it up next class. It will be just summing up of the 15th chapter without touching the book. We will just try to understand without going into the nitty-gritties of the whole issues, in a general way, what we have to actually take from this 15th chapter. Understanding this means we are understanding the whole of the crux or the essence of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. Let's stop here. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.